Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. I'm your host, Catherine Tao. And today on our show, we have Ashwin Pingali, the CTO of Apps Consultant Incorporated. And today we're going to be speaking more about process mining. So welcome to the show, Ashwin. I'm excited to speak with you today.
Hi, thanks, Catherine. Thanks for the opportunity to give me to let me talk.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Can you tell the audience more about your background?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's in engineering and a master's in business, and then followed by a PhD, which I left halfway through as my consulting took off. So Apps Consultants was founded in 2005, right at the time when I was doing my PhD, when I started the consulting, and it took off, and I had a great career so far. So now we are moving from consulting medium to large corporations to a managed services format where we provide consulting services through the cloud. And so we have got some expertise in cloud and AI, ML technologies that are coming through at a very fast pace in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. With everything changing right now, also in the data space, things are always changing. But it's great to hear that the company that you work for really took off in the middle of kind of your academics. But that's great. And today we're going to be talking more about just process mining in general. So could you
Mhm.
tell the audience more about what process mining is?
Yeah, process mining is the ability to measure a process and its performance from data, ability to identify anomalies in the process. So something that's it's not happening according to plan, and identifying the bottlenecks that are impeding the performance of the process. So it can apply to any process as long as you have data that's coming from, and we can discover it, measure it, then we can do process mining.
Yeah, that sounds great. And could you describe an example, a specific example of how you use process mining and just how it helped improve the business overall?
Yeah, so one of the most ambitious projects have been is a project for improving the quote velocity. So think of this, a customer comes and requests a quote. Maybe it could be from the company itself, or it could be a dealer who sells the company's products, or it could be a distributor. And then this quote goes back to the customer. The customer negotiates the quote. The dealer will have to sometimes get some pricing approval. The quote gets accepted or rejected. And if it gets accepted, it converts into an order, and the product gets shipped, invoiced, and paid. So this is the process. And the quote velocity is how many quotes are turning into dollars per day. And that's how the company makes money, right? The more quotes it can convert into orders and drive it to revenue and drive it to cash, the faster they can grow. And you'll be surprised that if you just change the amount of time a code spends in the system, even by a few hours, the impact can be a good 8 figures for a large company. And this particular company, we were seeing a benefit in the 9 figures. Okay. So we looked at the codes, and the first thing what we did was identify the code, figure out whether it should go through a no touch process, a low touch process, or a high touch process. And previously, every code was used, I mean, they had the same process for everything. And that was causing every code to go through a 3 day or 4 day approval cycle, which was too much. And by splitting all these codes based on the value, based on the type of a code, etc., into these three processes, we were able to actually improve the total code velocity, giving a substantial gain to the company. So implementing that, I mean, this is the identification. Implementing it was a very big chore. That took 2.5 years, but that's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
process mining
sounds
will allow you to identify these kind of scenarios very quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like a very long process, but it worked out all in the end just to have
Yeah.
that end goal. What was your favorite part about this whole process?
So first thing is like, getting this data and organizing it and showing the actual velocity. Sometimes the biggest aha moment comes is this really happening? And usually two things occur. People get very defensive and say that cannot be true. And then you know that you're doing the right thing, because whenever you get a reaction that's very antagonistic, I mean, we should not get carried away by that emotions, but usually that is the time when we look at the data, make sure that the data is clean and accurate. And then if the data is accurate, then we relook at the results and say, why is it not acceptable? And usually because people already have a mental model. And that's where I see the biggest advantage of process mining is, because it's almost like seeing the forest instead of the trees. because people know how many quotes are coming in. People know how much revenue is coming in. People don't know that these set of 100,000 quotes spent 12 days in the system, and this particular order took so long. 4% of the orders consumed 80% of the person's time. This kind of information is kind of hidden in the data. When you show it, either the reaction is a little of surprise or a blank refusal. So that's what I see as the most interesting part. And then the challenge becomes like, how do you give them the time to digest the answer? That's where you try to grow up and be a bystander, watch them digest it, and make sure that you give them the assurance that we are on the same side. We are not on the opposite sides. I'm not trying to take somebody's job. I'm just trying to help them. So that's the thing. So that was, I think, my biggest learning from it.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to also kind of transition into the concept of just graph-based machine learning right now. So your part of your work also kind of uses this concept, and it's become more popular in the past 5 to 7 years. So could you tell us more about how it's really changed in the past couple of years?
Yeah, so the number of graph databases that you see in the market, I mean, 2010, probably there is one or two that were like, really production ready. Maybe Neo4j was okay, but 2010, it was still in its infancy. Nothing was really production ready. Now you have probably around 10, 20 graphs. Yesterday, or I mean, last 6 months, I think Katana Graph, there's a new company that has come. They raised around $20 million in venture funding, so there is a lot of activity that's happening at the thing. So that's the first thing that I see. The number of papers that you see published in the last 7 years has gone through the roof, especially in graph algorithms. Number three is these algorithms are now actually becoming production ready. That's the funny part. Like, Node to Vec, which was an algorithm that was only in the papers, now is a production ready algorithm that's available in Neo4j. And then the number four, what I have seen, at least the professors that I follow and who I actually read the research and keep up to date. One person is Yuri. He's from Stanford. And the kind of results he has obtained for especially the pharma companies is astounding. So he built a solution where they could actually identify drug interactions, because you cannot do testing of people who take these combinations of drugs. What will happen? That's almost like, very hard to answer that question, and you can't do research on that. So this particular graph-based approach that this researcher suggested actually gave very promising results. And that's something like, you're moving the needle. I see very similar things in the media. I see a lot of use cases that have come in the telco space where I see graphs being used a lot. I see a lot of use cases in the ad tech. And all of these are giving substantial results because nobody has seen the data organized as a graph before. Nobody has applied the graph algorithm. So it's kind of a fertile territory. I mean, so think of, you get this full fertile land and you can grow anything on it. And everything grows very fast without any fertilizer or anything else. So that's what is happening with graphs. And so companies that are in the willing to experiment, I think, are going to see a lot more benefits.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so important to always just try to do different things just to see what would work best, and just to find the best solution. So great insight there. And there's a lot of challenges that also come with your line of work. And I think it's important for, especially on this podcast, to share about some of the challenges and how you overcame them throughout the process of your work. So my next question for you is, what obstacles do organizations face in implementing AI and ML within their business processes? And how do they what is the best way to kind of overcome some of these challenges?
This is a question of more a language and communication, because AI and ML is not meant to be an IT solution. It is a business solution addressing a particular business need. So the first thing that you want to understand is, what is it that I'm trying to impact? It should be a metric. It should be a KPI that the business cares about. So if you can understand that KPI and articulate the use case in terms of the KPI, then you get some kind of backing for that use case. So building the first business case is usually the biggest problem, because people go ahead and read the trade journals and say, oh, AI can do this, AI can do that. But what is it that you need from AI, and what is the KPI that's keeping up at night? And that's the part that is hard to make the jump for many companies, because IT and business don't talk to each other, and it's always been a one-way communication where the business tells the IT that this is what I need done, and the IT just goes and executes. So it's almost like a homeowner and a handyman relationship, rather than a prospective homeowner looking for an architect to help him build his dream house. Okay, so that's the difference. When you are looking at AI ML, you are looking for an architect. You're not looking for a handyman. So that's the first thing. Once you have the use case, then we need to make sure that we have the data, and getting access to the data is the second part and the biggest part of the challenge. So you have to cross over a lot of hurdles for that. And once we have this, and once we have the prototype and the solution in production, AI ML solutions require a lot more maintenance than the regular solutions, because the data keeps changing, the business keeps changing, nothing is going to stay steady. So you need to build a monitoring and observability solutions that keeps track of the data, see how the drift is happening, and make sure that you can improve the solution as it is deteriorating. And this particular thing, many companies ignore. So you see a lot of AI ML solutions that see the light of the data because they get the first two steps done, but the third step never gets done, because you see the first release of the product, and then there is no second or a third release. People say, oh yeah, it worked for a couple of months and now it's not working. And then what did you do about it? Oh, nothing. We scrapped the project. So that is not going to happen. It's almost like you look at a child and say, okay, is this guy going to be an Olympic athlete? Yes, I'm going to train it. And you look for him 2 days, and then he's not turned into another Olympic athlete, and stop the training. It doesn't work like that. So when you're dealing with AI ML, you're dealing with learning, and you're dealing with some patience and some long-term thinking.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, it also comes with a lot of just model tuning and changing it just to optimize the end goal of what you're trying to achieve. So
Correct.
that's definitely great insight there. And I wanted to say thank you so much for being on our show today, Ashwin. It was so great to have you. And we at the Data Standard, we're trying to build a community of data enthusiasts and data thought leaders so that everybody has a place where they can all network and collaborate with each other. So what is something that we could do for you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, and I am planning to actually. So I started doing an ultra learning project where I'm taking a lot of courses, working on building my expertise in the cloud services and deep learning and reinforcement learning. So I'm always looking for feedback. I want to understand what people think about the technology, what the problems are. So a lot comes to me from listening to others. So thank you. Thanks for having me here, and look forward to talking to you later and soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our audience, for more information on the Data Standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. And thank you so much, Ashwin, for joining us. So great to speak with you more about process mining and just learning more about your experiences. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.